This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Regina League.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Good Neighbor Podcast here in South Charlotte. I am excited today to be talking to Vanessa Faulk. She is the franchise owner and agency director of Wisdom Senior Care here in South Charlotte. How are you, Vanessa?
I'm doing great, Regina. How are you doing today?
Good. We met a couple years ago, so I'm so excited. I think when we met, you were brand new to this franchise, so I'm excited to hear what you're doing and how you're doing. But first, let's start out with tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey into this industry, because I know you have a good story.
Okay. Well, thank you. And yeah, I think it's been right at 2 years since you and I first met for coffee. And that was at the very beginning of us purchasing our franchise location here in Charlotte. So my background is healthcare. It's actually the only thing that I've done since I was 20 years old. So I'm nearly 20 years into directly working with people. My background is first as a dialysis technician. I've done the hands-on things there for almost 15 years. And then after meeting my husband, I settled here in Charlotte and was offered a wonderful opportunity along with my business partner to purchase into a home care franchise. And the reason why that was something that was amazing for me is because I've worked with the elderly for quite a while, and it was really nice to think that I would be able to be someone that could send out individual care to the people that I've been serving for so long. So the care that we provide is individual in-home care to seniors here in Charlotte. So I get the opportunity to choose caring and compassionate caregivers to go out and assist in the homes. So that's something that means a lot to me.
Oh, I know it does. I can see your face smiling, even though our listeners can't see that. But tell us about Wisdom Senior Care, because it's not a familiar brand yet in Charlotte, but I know there's a long history with this brand. So tell us about the founders and what sets you apart.
Okay, so the amazing thing about Wisdom Senior Care that really struck me personally was that they've been in business for almost 20 years, operating in the Durham, Raleigh-Durham area. The founder of Wisdom Senior Care is actually a nurse herself who has a long history of working in elder care. So initially, she started working just directly with seniors herself. And after seeing the impact that she was able to have as an individual, it really inspired her to expand that brand. And they've actually expanded now into 2 or 3 different states, I think, at this point. And we have several locations operating here in the Charlotte area. So although our footprint here in Charlotte is slowly growing as a brand, we have been able to help thousands of seniors in our community.
That is wonderful. You know, this touches my heart. This is something that my family has dealt with firsthand. So, I just know from being around memory care and those kind of things, there's just such a passion that the caregivers have. Unlike anything, I think you either love babies or you love the elderly. And, it's just something you can just see. It takes something very special. Talk to us about what you guys offer.
So Wisdom Senior Care offers in-home personal care services in our area. Basically, our goal is to ensure that seniors are well taken care of and able to stay in their homes longer. 87% of seniors have said that they enjoy being in their home and would like to what they call age in place. So age in place is where they would stay in their homes basically until the end of their lives instead of having to go somewhere else that is unfamiliar to them. So we will send in assistants to do things like assist with bathing, grooming, meal preparation, housekeeping, anything that we can do to assist our elderly population in being able to stay in their homes, which is what they really want and which is what usually the families want as well.
Yeah, and I find that, the conversations we've had in our family, oftentimes that elderly parent doesn't think they need the help.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell us who usually calls you and says, oh, is it ever the person themselves, but I'm guessing the spouse or most likely the children?
So every once in a while, we'll have someone call themselves. And usually when we have those kind of calls, it's someone that is looking for some support after, say, a surgical procedure, because that is actually also something that we offer. It's not just care of the elderly. It's pretty much anyone who needs some additional assistance around their home, whether they're recovering from cancer, surgery, injury, and things of that nature. So we have a few calls like that, but mainly our calls are from the children. The children are visiting mom and dad, and they're like, the house is a mess. They can't find this. They can't find that. They're not taking their medicine. They're just realizing that maybe that independence that their parents had has now started to decline a little bit. And so a lot of times they'll reach out to our office and just kind of want some information usually. And then that's when we can move forward with seeing what kind of services we're able to provide for them, because we're always able to help.
Is there an assessment process?
Yes. So our first step would be our initial consultation. The reason why we do that is because me personally, I will go out and I meet every single one of my clients. So there is not a client that has been in our location that I have not met myself. And that is very imperative in our caregiver matching. So when I myself as the agency director goes out, I actually take the time to go into the home myself. I sit down with the client and their family to talk about their background. What did they do? Where did they work? What is their faith? What kind of things are they interested in doing? So that way, when we choose someone to go and visit with them, it's someone that their family feels comfortable with. It's not just someone that's just randomly chosen. It's someone that would be a good fit for their family, because we found that really improves satisfaction, and it also improves adherence to the care plan, which is done by our registered nurse. So after my initial consultation with the family, we will then have a registered nurse come out and set a personalized plan of care based on what the client needs themselves. So each individual client gets a plan of care that works best for them and their family.
That's fabulous. Well, I see on your website, your services range from companionship, transportation, personal care, home management. So to understand, it doesn't have to be a senior. If it's like after surgery, if it's just in-home healthcare, you can help with any of that.
Yes. So even things sometimes, especially with people that are, I call them kind of transplants to the Charlotte area, as am I. I've been here for about 3 years now. Sometimes you don't have that family member that you can just call. So many of us now don't live in our hometown anymore. We might not have a brother or a sister or an aunt or someone that can help come and sit with us during surgery or pick us up after it's over. So we also do things like that. Sometimes you have to, if you have a procedure that you are going to go under anesthesia and you need someone to be there, but you don't have a family member or a friend, we can come sit during the procedure, make sure that you get home safely, make sure that you have something to eat and everything is secure, even in small instances like that. Because that's another benefit of Wisdom Senior Care. We do not have an hourly minimum as some other agencies do. We try to meet our clients where they're at in their level of need.
That was going to be my next question. So does insurance pay for any of this, or talk to us a little bit about that?
So at this time in North Carolina, typically private insurance does not pay, or state insurance does not pay for personal care services. Unfortunately, the government hasn't quite figured out that these things are necessary as people begin to age, and they're not looked at as health services. They're looked at as personal care services, which is why there's the complication with insurance. But sometimes our mothers and fathers and grandmothers and great-grandmothers and great-grandfathers, they don't need medical assistance. They need assistance getting in and out of the shower, getting up in the morning, having their breakfast made, reminding them to use their walker, things that aren't necessarily medical, but they are still necessary.
Absolutely. Yes, I totally get that. What are some of the misconceptions that you find come up?
I would say that it's usually about caregivers. I think that the word caregiver and just kind of the reputation that it has been around that hasn't always been the greatest. I mean, the people that we choose, they are very well trained. Wisdom actually has a Wisdom Health Academy, which is where we get our materials to help train our caregivers. The physical location of the Health Academy is in Durham. So there are times that I will get CNAs directly from the academy that then transition to working in Charlotte. We do a very thorough national background check. And then the caregivers are handpicked by me because I want them to reflect the heart of wisdom. Our core values are faith, compassion, dependability, respect, and longevity. And so we really want to make sure that those are things that we uphold with every caregiver that we hire. And so sometimes I think families are very concerned about the person that's going to come into their home, which is understandable. But choosing the right agency will really help alleviate a lot of that concern.
So that brings up another question. As someone who thinks, okay, I do need to start talking to companies, what advice would you give that person making the phone calls? What should the kind of questions should they be asking when they're interviewing you guys? Yeah. What should we look for?
That's a great question, Regina. And I actually do a lot of outside education outside of Wisdom. So although I do own the agency and I work for Wisdom Senior Care, I do a lot of outside education as well. I'm actually a certified dementia practitioner myself. So sometimes I just like to counsel families on the exact question, what do you say when you're trying to choose an agency? So I always say, how accessible is the person who you are paying? How accessible is the person that is the one that is sending people to your home? You want to know that if there's an emergency, that person is going to be able to be reached because things happen. Caregivers get into car accidents, caregivers get sick, families have emergencies themselves, and sometimes they need a modification of the schedule. If you're not able to reach someone when you call, that's a good indication that they're not going to be able to be reliable when you need them in the future. I would say that's a good one. Also, are they doing background checks? How are the caregivers being trained? How are the caregivers chosen for the families? And their hourly, are there hourly minimums each week? If you don't meet that minimum, are there fees that are associated? Things of that nature, just to make sure that when you are in a situation of choosing, that you don't feel stuck and that you know that you always have an option to make a different decision.
Yeah. So if, let's say you do the pairing of the caregiver with the client, do they keep that same one as long as it's a good match and the client prefers that person?
So what we like to do is we typically try to introduce a primary caregiver and then also a secondary caregiver, which goes along with our team approach. Reason being is that I have been in healthcare for so long that I recognize that things do happen. And we always want the client to know that we're going to be there for them no matter what. So typically we do get someone that's in there and they get settled and the client is comfortable with them. And then we will assign a secondary caregiver. And oftentimes we will try to have the secondary person come out with the primary person, be introduced to the client so that that secondary person is just as abreast of the client's needs as their person that they're used to. But using our team approach, we still make sure that that client is taken care of each and every shift. And that's our primary focus.
I love your approach. As I said, having gone through this, it is such a journey for the family. It's so emotional. And so everything you just said was very wise. Wisdom is very wise at how they approach things.
Thank you.
So you are amazing, Vanessa. When you're not working, and what do you enjoy doing outside of work?
So I really like spending time with my family. I'm still kind of a newlywed, so I've got a new business and a new husband in the last couple years, and we have 2 great little boys. So we like spending time together, just going outside, visiting family. I'm really blessed myself to still have my grandmother, both of my grandmothers, my grandfather, and my great grandmother still living in the Raleigh-Durham area. So we get there and we visit with them. and just make sure that my great grandmother is being taken care of, because, we're getting to that point with her, and being in the industry, it's just like, Grandma, I know what to do. And she's like, so believe me, like when I hear families and their struggles that they have sometimes with convincing their loved ones that they need to take that step, I know it's hard, but we really want to be able to be there for you all, just like we are for our own families.
Oh, absolutely wonderful. So tell our listeners how they can find you.
We can be reached at our website, which is wisdomseniorcare.com/109. The 109 will direct you to our location in South Charlotte. The other thing that you can do is Google Wisdom Senior Care Charlotte, and that should bring you to our location. And our office phone number is 980-272-1001. So we are always available by phone. We're actually on call 24/7, because we do recognize that sometimes things happen outside of business hours. So we can be reached there as well.
Well, it has been a pleasure getting to know more about your business, and great seeing you again, Vanessa. I hope to see you out in the community very soon.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much, Regina, for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpsouthcharlotte.com. That's gnpsouthcharlotte.com, or call 980-351-5719.